The small research vessel's stellar horizon floated quietly in the shadow of an enormous gas giant. Its sleek silver hull reflected the distant sunlight as it drifted in a stable orbit around the unexplored planet. Inside the ship, 6 Volusian. Scientists moved about their work with delicate, precise movements. Their thin, 6-limbed bodies and translucent blue skin gave them an almost ghostly appearance as they glided through the narrow corridors. Captain Zivel stood on the observation deck, his large eyes blinking slowly as he watched the swirling storms on the planet below. The Volusians had been studying this gas giant for nearly 2 weeks now, collecting samples and data about its unusual atmospheric composition. It was routine work for the research team, but Zivel found a quiet beauty in the massive planets. Colored clouds. Captain, could you come to the communications room? The voice of Rilanax, their communications officer, sounded urgent through the ship's speakers. We have found something unusual. When Zivel arrived at the communications room, Rilanax was hovering over a small metallic object on the examination table. The rest of the crew had gathered around it as well, their thin fingers gesturing excitedly. We discovered this floating in the debris field surrounding the 7th moon, Rilanax explained. It appears to be some kind of technological device, possibly a beacon or transmitter. Its design doesn't match any known species in our database. The object was roughly cylindrical, covered in strange markings and what looked like input panels. It was clearly damaged, with one side dented and scorched from what might have been an explosion or crash. Have you determined if it's safe? Zivel asked, keeping a cautious distance. The science officer, Mev Tau, nodded. Our scans show no radiation or harmful substances. It appears to be inactive, though its power source is still functioning at minimal levels. I'd like to try to access its systems, Rilanax said, his voice filled with the excitement of discovery. Perhaps we can learn which civilization created it. Zivel considered the request. The Galactic Council had clear protocols about handling unknown technology, but this seemed harmless enough. Proceed with caution, he finally said, but be prepared to contain it if anything unexpected happens. Rilanax began to work, his slender fingers moving carefully across the device's surface. When he pressed a particular sequence of panels, the object suddenly hummed to life. Lights flickered across its surface, and before anyone could react, it emitted a loud series of beeps and tones. What did you do? Zivel demanded, backing away from the now active device. Nothing dangerous. Rilanax insisted, though panic was evident in his voice. I simply activated what appeared to be a diagnostic system, but it seems to have triggered some kind of automated response. One of the junior scientists checked her scanner. It's transmitting a signal, she reported, her voice rising with concern. A powerful one, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Shut it down, Zivel ordered immediately. Rilanax tried, his fingers frantically working the device's controls, but nothing happened. It's not responding to any inputs now. The transmission sequence appears to be locked. What kind of signal is it sending? Zivel asked, already moving toward the ship's main control room. It's repeating the same pattern, the junior scientist replied, following him. It doesn't match any known communication protocols in our database. In the control room, Zivel ordered an immediate departure from orbit. We need to get away from that device. If we can't shut it down, we'll leave it behind. But as they prepared to break orbit, the science officer called out in alarm. Captain, we're experiencing interference with our engines. There's some kind of solar flare activity from the system star. It's disrupting our systems. And the communication arrays, added Rilanax, who had joined them. We can't send messages out either. We're effectively cut off until the solar activity subsides. How long? Zivel asked. Based on current readings, at least 3 days, the science officer replied grimly, Zivel's large eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of distress among his species. And that device will continue broadcasting its signal the entire time. Yes, Rilanax. Confirmed. To whoever might be listening. 40 light-years away, at Outpost Zeta 9, Dr. Alan Wright sat alone in the communications center. As Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, his job was mostly ceremonial. The Council had made it clear that humans were too unpredictable, too aggressive to be trusted with any real responsibilities in galactic affairs. Alan was only allowed at this outpost because Earth had stubbornly insisted on having some representation, and Zeta 9 was remote enough that he couldn't cause any diplomatic incidents. His daily routine included checking communication logs and filing reports that he suspected no one ever read. He was about to end his shift when an unusual signal caught his attention. The pattern was strangely familiar, though he couldn't immediately place it. He isolated the transmission and ran it through the station's analysis program. The computer beeped, indicating a match in its database. Alan read the screen and felt his heart rate increase. The pattern matched old Earth maritime distress signals, SOS calls, that hadn't been used in centuries. That can't be right, he muttered to himself, running the analysis again. The result was the same. Alan pulled up the signal's origin data. It was coming from an unexplored system near the edge of Volusian space. No human ships should be anywhere near that region. Council protocols were clear. Any unusual signals should be reported to the proper authorities, who would deliberate on the appropriate response. That process could take weeks. If this really was a distress call, whoever sent it might not have weeks. Alan made a decision. He copied the signal and attached his authentication codes as Earth's official representative. Then he sent it directly to Earth Defense Command with a simple message. Possible distress call from unexplored space. Authentication codes attached, requesting immediate investigation. He knew he would likely face severe consequences for bypassing Council procedures, but something about that signal troubled him. It was too precise, too deliberate to be random space noise. Someone was calling for help. On Luna Base, Admiral Kate Bowman was reviewing fleet deployment plans when the message from Outpost Zeta 9 arrived. She played the attached signal twice, her expression growing more serious with each repetition. Get me verification on those authentication codes, she ordered her aide, and prepare a secure channel to the President. The aide returned minutes later. Codes verified, Admiral. They belong to Dr. Alan Wright, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. Kate nodded, her decision already made. She activated the base's emergency communication system and spoke clearly into the microphone. This is Admiral Bowman. Initiate protocol safeguard. We have friendlies in distress. She paused, then added, and may God help whoever's threatening them. Throughout the Earth Defense Fleet, alarms began to sound. Ships in dock prepared for immediate departure. Crews were recalled from leave. Weapon systems were brought online and checked. Within hours, 27 warships broke orbit from Earth, Luna, and Mars, forming up into attack formation before, disappearing into warp space, heading toward a distant star where someone had accidentally called for help, and the Volusians, still trying desperately to deactivate the beacon, had no idea what was coming. 3 days passed aboard the Stellar Horizon. The Volusian research team had given up trying to deactivate the mysterious beacon. It sat in a sealed container in the cargo hold, still broadcasting its signal into space. Captain Zivel had ordered. It moved there after Rilanax's repeated attempts to shut it down had failed. The solar flares had finally begun to subside. Their ship systems were slowly coming back online, but it would be several more hours before they could send a message to Volusian Space Command explaining their situation. Perhaps no one has detected the signal, Mevtal suggested hopefully as the crew gathered in the ship's small dining area. This system is far from established trade routes. Zivel's upper limbs moved in a gesture of doubt. We must prepare a full report for the Council regardless. Activating unknown technology without proper containment protocols was a serious breach of regulations. The Council will understand it was an accident, said Rilinax, though he didn't sound convinced. His career as a communications specialist would likely suffer from this incident. A sudden alarm blared through the ship, causing all 6 Velusians to jump in surprise. The science officer rushed to the nearest console. Multiple warp signatures. Detected at the edge of the system, she announced, her voice tight with fear. 27 vessels approaching in formation. 27? Zivel repeated in disbelief. That's not a research fleet or trading convoy. That's a military formation. The crew moved quickly to the bridge, watching with growing dread as their sensors tracked the approaching ships. They were moving with purpose, heading directly toward the gas giant where the stellar horizon orbited. Can we identify them? Zivel asked. The science officer worked frantically at her station. The design doesn't match any in our database. They're heavily armored, and... She paused, her large eyes widening. And they appear to be heavily armed as well. Armed? Rilinak's voice rose in panic. What have we done? What kind of signal was that device broadcasting? We have no choice, Zivel said firmly. Prepare surrender documents according to Council. Protocols? Whatever species this is, we must make it clear we mean no harm. Aboard the flagship Valiant Dawn, Admiral Kate Bowman stood on the bridge, watching as her fleet dropped out of warp space in perfect formation. 27 ships, the pride of Earth's defense fleet, arranged in a protective wall with the Valiant Dawn at its center. Scan the system, she ordered. Find our target. The bridge crew worked efficiently at their stations. These men and women had trained for years for scenarios like this, though none had expected to be the first humans to engage in potential combat beyond Earth's solar system. Contact located, Admiral, reported the sensor officer. Small vessel in orbit around the gas giant, reading minimal power signatures and very light armaments. Definitely not a warship. Kate frowned. Could it be a civilian vessel under duress? Possible, ma'am. We're detecting one other object near it, small, artificial, emitting the distress signal. Life signs? Yes, Admiral. 6 individuals aboard the vessel. Biosigns don't match any. Known species in our database. Kate considered this information. The situation was growing more complex by the minute. They had expected to find humans in trouble, perhaps explorers, or an unauthorized colony ship. Instead, they were facing an unknown alien species. Communications, she called. Establish contact with the vessel. Lisa Martinez, the fleet's senior communications officer, nodded. Yes, Admiral. She worked quickly at her console, then looked up. Channel open, Admiral. Kate spoke clearly. This is Admiral Kate Bowman of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal and have come to render assistance. Please identify yourselves and state the nature of your emergency. On the stellar horizon, Evolutions stared at each other in confusion as the translated message came through their speakers. Earth? Zivel repeated. They're humans? The crew's anxiety increased tenfold. Most species in the galaxy had heard of humans, though few had actually seen one. They were classified as Deathworlders, beings who evolved on a high-gravity planet with extreme environmental conditions and numerous predators. Council orientation sessions included specific warnings about human physiology and their unpredictable nature. Humans don't venture this far into Council space, Mevtal said. The treaties forbid it. The beacon, Rilinax realized with growing horror. It must have been of human origin. We activated a human distress beacon, and they came to rescue. He couldn't finish the sentence. "Transmit the surrender documents immediately," Ziva ordered. "Make it clear we activated their device by mistake, and that we submit to their authority." Back on the Valiant Dawn, Lisa Martinez looked confused as she received the Volusian response. "Admiral, they're surrendering to us. They say they activated our beacon by mistake and accept full responsibility. They're transmitting formal surrender documents according to something called Council Protocols." Kate's expression hardened. "Something's not right. Those aliens are acting like hostages reading from a script." She turned to her security chief. "Lieutenant Parker, prepare a boarding team. Full tactical gear and armed for potential hostile encounter." "Yes, Admiral," John Parker replied, already moving toward the door. John was a veteran of the Martian conflict, with 15 years of military experience. He had never expected to lead the first human boarding party onto an alien vessel, but he was determined to do it right. 30 minutes later, John and his team of 6 Marines were sealed in their exosuits-powered armor designed for combat in hostile environments. Each suit stood nearly 7 feet tall and was equipped with enhanced strength systems, life support for up to 72 hours, and enough firepower to level a small building. "Remember," John told his team as they prepared to board the shuttle, "our priority is rescuing whoever is being held against their will. We don't know what we're facing, so stay alert and follow protocols." The shuttle departed from the Valiant Dawn, crossing the short distance to the stellar horizon in minutes. Through the viewport, John could see the alien vessel clearly now. It was smaller than he had expected, with an elegant design that suggested scientific rather than military purpose. On the stellar horizon, the Volusians watched in terror as the human shuttle approached. When it docked with their airlock, they gathered in the main chamber as Zival had instructed, all 6 of them standing in a line with their upper limbs held open in the traditional posture of surrender. The inner airlock door slid open, and the Volusians froze in shock. Towering armored figures stepped into their ship, their heavy footsteps echoing through the metal floor. Each human was encased in mechanical armor that made them appear twice their normal size, with glowing visors hiding their faces and weapons. Held ready in their hands, in perfect unison, following their species' most formal surrender protocol, all 6 Volusians dropped to the floor, pressing their bodies flat against the deck in complete submission. Lieutenant John Parker saw the aliens collapse simultaneously as his team entered the chamber. His combat instincts kicked in immediately. "They're down," he shouted into his comm. "Some kind of attack. Secure the vessel and find the hostiles." As the Marines rushed forward, sweeping the ship for the enemies they believed had attacked the fallen aliens, John kneeled beside one of the Volusians, his medical scanner already activated. "Admiral," he reported back to the Valiant Dawn, "something's attacking these aliens. They collapsed as soon as we entered. We need to find whatever's controlling them and shut it down. Requesting permission to search the entire vessel." "Permission granted," came Kate's immediate reply. "Find out what we're dealing with, Lieutenant." The misunderstanding had only just begun. The Volusians remained motionless on the floor of their ship, terrified to move as the armored humans rushed around them. They could hear the heavy footsteps of the humans searching their small research vessel, opening doors and checking compartments. With their weapons ready, Captain Zival was in a state of shock. This was not how first contact with humans was supposed to happen. The Council had strict protocols for interactions with Deathworlders. There were supposed to be mediators, safety measures, and extensive preparation. Instead, his crew had accidentally summoned an entire human battle fleet. Lieutenant John Parker returned to the main chamber after his team had searched the entire ship. They had found no other life forms, no weapons, and nothing that seemed like a threat. Only scientific equipment and the strange beacon in the cargo hold. "Admiral," John reported through his comm. "We've swept the vessel. No sign of hostiles, but the aliens are still down. Request medical team for evaluation." "Granted." Admiral Kate replied, "I'm sending Dr. Mason over. Keep your team on high alert." John knelt beside one of the Volusians again, Zivel, though John had no way of knowing he was the captain. Through his helmet sensors, John could detect the alien's rapid breathing and elevated heart rate. "We're here to help," John said slowly, hoping the alien could understand him. "Are you injured?" Zivel didn't dare move. In Volusian culture, rising from the submission posture before being given permission was considered a hostile act. He simply blinked his large eyes rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among his species. 20 minutes later, Dr. Eric Mason arrived with 2 medical assistants. Unlike the Marines, they wore lighter environmental suits rather than full combat armor. Dr. Mason had studied xenobiology for 15 years, but he had never treated an actual alien. His knowledge was theoretical, based on simulations and the limited information shared by the Galactic Council. "Let me examine them," Eric said, approaching the nearest Volusian with a medical scanner. The device hummed as it collected data on the alien's physiology. "Interesting," Eric muttered. "They appear to be in perfect health physically. Elevated stress markers in their biochemistry, but no signs of injury or external control." He looked up at John. "I don't think they're being attacked. I think they're terrified." "Of what?" John asked, glancing around the empty chamber. Eric hesitated, then said quietly, "Of us, Lieutenant. I think they're afraid of us." Before John could respond, Admiral Kate's voice came through their comms. "Lieutenant, Dr. Mason, we have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected a Galactic Council vessel approaching. ETA 30 minutes. Return to the Valiant Dawn immediately with one of the aliens for questioning. We need to know what's happening before the Council arrives." Eric frowned. "Admiral, I don't recommend moving these beings yet. We don't understand their condition." "That wasn't a suggestion, Doctor," Kate replied firmly. "We need answers now." Following orders, John carefully picked up Zivel, who remained completely rigid in the human's grasp. The Volusian was surprisingly light, weighing less than 40 pounds despite being nearly 5 feet tall. His thin limbs and delicate frame made John feel like he was handling a glass sculpture. "Easy," John said softly. "We're taking you somewhere safe." Back on the Valiant Dawn, Admiral Kate watched from the bridge as reports came in from across the fleet. 27 warships maintained their protective formation around the alien vessel. Weapons systems remained on standby, ready to engage any threat at a moment's notice. Kate had served in Earth's defense fleet for 25 years. She had fought in the Martian conflict and had led peacekeeping missions in Earth's colonies. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for this situation: possible first contact with an unknown alien species, apparently in distress. With Galactic Council forces approaching, the shuttle returned from the stellar horizon, docking in the Valiant Dawn's bay. Minutes later, John and Eric arrived on the bridge with the still rigid Volusian. "Put him down gently," Eric instructed, pointing to a clear area near the main view screen. John carefully set Zivel on the floor. The Volusian remained in the same position, his body trembling slightly. "Can you understand us?" Kate asked, addressing the alien directly for the first time. Zivel blinked rapidly, but remained silent and motionless. "Admiral," Eric said, "I believe these beings are following some kind of cultural protocol. This posture may be significant to them." At that moment, Communications Officer Lisa Martinez called out from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the approaching Council vessel." On screen, Kate ordered, the main view screen flickered, and an image appeared of a tall, willowy being with pale green skin and elongated features. Council Representative Tlari S. expression changed from diplomatic neutrality to shock when she saw the bridge of the human warship. "This is Council Representative Tlari," she said, her voice translated by the ship's computer. "You are in violation of Treaty Section 47, which prohibits human military vessels from entering this sector. Power down your weapons and prepare to." She stopped abruptly, her eyes widening. "Is that a Volusian? What are you doing with a Volusian researcher?" Before Kate could answer, Tlari turned to speak to someone off-screen. When she faced the camera again, her tone had changed completely. "You will release the Volusian scientists immediately. This unauthorized aggression will be reported to the full council." Kate straightened her uniform. "Representative Tlari, we responded to a distress signal from this location. We found these beings in what appeared to be a dangerous situation. We are trying to help them." "Help them?" Tlari repeated with obvious disbelief. "You have deployed a battle fleet and boarded their vessel with armed soldiers. The Volusians are a peaceful scientific species. They have no weapons and pose no threat to anyone." As the conversation continued, Dr. Alan Wright at Outpost Zeta 9 was frantically trying to make sense of the messages flooding his communication console. The Earth Defense Fleet had moved without authorization from the Council. A Council representative was en route to confront them, and there were reports of humans holding alien scientists captive. Alan knew he had to act quickly. The situation was spiraling toward potential conflict. He accessed the secure channel to the Valiant Dawn that he had used to send the original distress signal. "This is Dr. Alan Wright to Communications Officer Lisa Martinez," he transmitted. "Urgent message regarding current situation. Please respond." On the Valiant Dawn, Lisa noticed the incoming transmission on a secondary channel. With the Admiral engaged in the tense conversation with Tlari, Lisa quietly opened the channel. "This is Communications Officer Martinez." "Go ahead, Dr. Wright." "Lisa, we have a serious misunderstanding in progress," Alan explained rapidly. "The aliens you encountered are Volusians. They're classified as a protected species by the Council because of their fragile physiology. That posture they're displaying is their formal surrender position. They think you're going to harm them because humans are classified as dangerous Deathworlders in Council space." Lisa's eyes widened as she realized the implications. She turned to look at the trembling Volusian on the bridge, seeing the situation with new understanding. "I need to tell the Admiral," she whispered into the coma. But before she could get Kate's attention, sensors blared a new alert. 7 more ships had entered the system, the Council's peacekeeping force, responding to Tlari's emergency call about humans taking Volusian researchers hostage. The fleet's weapons officer called out, "Admiral, Council vessels are taking offensive positions. Their weapon systems are powering up." Kate's expression hardened. "Defensive positions," she ordered. "Protect the Volusian ship at all costs." The Earth fleet began to move, forming a tighter barrier between the Council ships and the Stellar. "Horizon, Admiral," Lisa called urgently. "I have critical information from Dr. Wright at Outpost Zeta 9. We've completely misunderstood the situation." Lisa Martinez rose from her communication station and rushed across the bridge toward Admiral Kate. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. On the main view screen, the Council ships were moving into attack formation. Around them, the crew of the Valiant Dawn prepared for possible combat. "Admiral," Lisa called, her voice urgent. "I just received critical information from Dr. Wright at Outpost Zeta 9. Kate turned, her attention divided between the approaching Council ships and her communications officer. "Make it quick, Martinez." "It's a misunderstanding, Admiral," Lisa explained rapidly. "The Volusians aren't being attacked or controlled. That position they're in, it's their formal surrender posture. They're terrified of us because humans are classified as Deathworlders by the Council." Kate's eyes widened slightly. the only indication of her surprise. She looked down at Zivel, still motionless on the floor of the bridge, then back at the view screen where Tlari waited for a response. "Dr. Mason," Kate said, "is this consistent with your observations?" Eric nodded emphatically. "Yes, Admiral. Their vital signs show extreme stress, but no physical injuries or signs of external control. This explanation makes perfect sense." Kate took a deep breath, then addressed Tlari on the screen. "Representative, we may have a significant cultural misunderstanding in progress. Our xenobiologist believes the Volusians are following a surrender protocol, not being controlled by outside forces." Tlari's expression remained skeptical. "Then why did you board their vessel with armed soldiers? Why is there a Volusian on the floor of your bridge?" "We received what we believed was a distress signal," Kate explained. "An old Earth emergency code. We came to render assistance, not to threaten or capture anyone." As they spoke, Dr. Mason knelt beside Zivel. "Is there a formal way to acknowledge their surrender?" he asked Lisa. "Something that would let them know they can move freely?" Lisa relayed the question to Dr. Wright at Outpost Zeta 9. Alan quickly searched through the limited Council cultural databases he had access to. "Tell Dr. Mason to place his right hand palm down about 2 feet above the Volusian's head," Alan instructed. "Then slowly lower it to about 6 inches above. Hold for 3 seconds and raise it again. This signals acceptance of submission and grants permission to rise." Eric followed these instructions carefully. To his surprise and relief, Zivel immediately responded. The Volusian slowly lifted his body from the floor and rose to a standing position, though he kept his upper limbs spread in a gesture of non-aggression. "I'm Captain Zivel of the research vessel Stellar Horizon," he said, his voice translated through the ship's computer. "We surrender completely to human authority and apologize for activating your beacon device." Kate addressed him directly. "Captain Zivel, there has been a misunderstanding. We are not here to accept your surrender or to harm you. We responded to what we believed was a distress call." On the view screen, Tlari watched this exchange with growing confusion. "Admiral Bowman, I demand an explanation. Why is a human fleet in prohibited space?" "Perhaps we should all meet to discuss this situation," Kate suggested. "Captain Zivel, Representative Tlari, would you agree to a face-to-face meeting on neutral ground?" After some negotiation, they agreed to meet aboard the Stellar Horizon. Kate selected a small delegation. Herself, Dr. Mason, Lieutenant Parker, and Communications Officer Martinez. They would meet with Tlari and 2 other Council representatives, along with the Volusian research team DOT as they prepared to depart. For the meeting, Kate received an urgent message from Earth. More human ships had begun moving toward their position in response to the initial alert. Over 100 warships were now within striking distance of major Council worlds. "This situation is getting more complicated by the minute," Kate muttered to Eric as they boarded the shuttle. When they arrived at the Stellar Horizon, they found the Volusians had prepared their small conference room for the meeting. The Council representatives were already there, standing as far as possible from the human delegation. Tlari began formally. "This meeting is to address the human violation of Treaty Section 47 and the unauthorized deployment of military forces in protected space." Kate responded calmly. "We are here because we received a distress signal from this location. Earth Defense Fleet protocols require us to respond to all distress calls, regardless of origin." Zivel spoke next, his voice trembling slightly. "The fault is ours. We discovered a device in the debris field around the gas giant. When we attempted to study it, it activated and began broadcasting a signal. We could not deactivate it or leave due to solar flare activity. The device was an old Earth emergency beacon," Kate explained. "It broadcasts a signal that humans recognize as a call for help. And your response was to send 27 warships? Tlari asked incredulously. We had no way of knowing the situation, Kate replied. The signal indicated lives were in danger. We came prepared for any scenario. As they continued to discuss the incident, Dr. Mason was studying the information displayed on his tablet. He had been reviewing council records about human classification, and what he found disturbed him greatly. Admiral, he interrupted, I think you should see this. He showed Kate his tablet. On it was the official council classification of humans. Deathworlders extreme caution required. Species evolved on high-gravity world with hostile environment and numerous predators. Physiology includes dense muscle tissue, reinforced skeletal structure, and aggressive instincts. Approach with caution. Direct contact discouraged. Is this how the council views humans? Kate asked Tlari. The representative seemed uncomfortable. It is a scientific classification based on your planet of origin and physical capabilities. It's more than that, Eric said. The Council has been deliberately keeping humans separated from other species. That's why we're restricted to certain sectors, why there are so few joint projects, why information sharing is so limited. Tlari did not deny it. Your species is considered potentially dangerous. Your physical strength alone makes you a threat to many council races. Zivil spoke up unexpectedly. When we saw your ships arrive, we believed the stories were true, that humans were aggressive conquerors. But your first message was an offer of help. You came because you thought we were in danger. Of course we did, Lieutenant John said. That's what you do when someone calls for help. You answer. Kate looked around the small conference room at the representatives of 3 different species. I think we need to reconsider how we view each other. The Council sees humans as dangerous because of our physical capabilities. We see ourselves as protectors. Protectors? Tlari repeated skeptically. Yes, Kate said firmly. Earth has a long history of stronger groups defending those who cannot defend themselves. It's part of our cultural identity. As they continued talking, Lisa received an urgent message on her communicator. She leaned close to Kate and whispered, Admiral, Earth Defense Command reports that over 100 human ships have now mobilized. They're awaiting your orders. Kate knew that the next few minutes would determine whether this first significant contact between humans and the Galactic Council would end in understanding or conflict. The misunderstanding that began with an accidental distress signal now threatened to escalate into something much more serious. Representative Tlari, Kate, said carefully, I need to send a message to my fleet and to Earth. What happens next depends on what we decide in this room. Tlari looked at the human admiral for a long moment. What are you proposing, Admiral Bowman? A new beginning, Kate replied. One where humans are seen not as a threat to be contained, but as allies who can help protect the galaxy. The future of human council relations hung in the balance as they continued their discussion aboard the small research vessel where it all began. The small conference room on the stellar horizon had become the most important diplomatic venue in the galaxy. Admiral Kate Bowman stood by the viewport, looking out at the stars and the ships beyond. 27 human warships faced 7 Council peacekeeping vessels across the void of space. And somewhere beyond sensor range, over 100 more Earthships were moving into position. We need to send a clear message to all forces, Kate said, turning back to the group. This situation can either become the first interstellar conflict involving humans, or it can be the beginning of a new understanding. Tlari seemed to struggle with the decision before her. The Council protocols were clear about dealing with Deathworlders, but those protocols had not anticipated this scenario humans rushing to help aliens they didn't even know. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? Tlari asked finally. First, a stand down of all military forces, Kate replied. I will order the Earth fleet to hold position and power down weapons. The Council forces should do the same. Clary nodded slowly. That is acceptable. And then? Then we talk. Really talk, without the filters and restrictions that have limited communication between humans and the Council until now. Kate turned to Lisa. Officer Martinez, send the following message to all Earth vessels. Stand down from combat readiness. This is a first contact situation, not a hostile engagement. Maintain positions, but power down all weapon systems. Lisa relayed the message. Moments later, she confirmed. Message received and acknowledged, Admiral. All Earth ships complying. Clary used her own communication device to issue similar orders to the Council vessels. The tension in the room eased slightly as both fleets visibly shifted from combat readiness to a neutral stance. Zevel, who had been quiet for much of the exchange, spoke up. May I offer an observation as someone who has witnessed both sides? Of this encounter, all eyes turned to the Volusian captain. When we accidentally activated the human beacon, we feared the worst. Our education teaches us that humans are dangerous, physically powerful beings from a hostile world. And indeed, when your ships arrived, they were frightening in their power and number. Zivel's upper limbs moved in a graceful gesture that the translation system couldn't quite interpret. But your actions did not match our expectations. You came because you thought we needed help. Your soldiers boarded our vessel, not to conquer, but to rescue. Even when misunderstandings occurred, your first concern was for our safety. He turned to Clary. Perhaps the Council's classification system needs to be reconsidered. Physical capability does not determine intent. The humans have demonstrated that their strength exists alongside a protective instinct. Dr. Mason nodded. In agreement. Our history on Earth shows this pattern repeatedly. Yes, humans have fought terrible wars. But we've also developed strong ethical systems around the idea that the strong should protect the vulnerable. A signal chimed on Kate's communicator. Admiral, we have an incoming transmission from Earth. President Paul Kelly wishes to speak with you. Put it through, Kate instructed. The ship's main screen activated, showing the face of Earth's leader. President Kelly looked serious but calm. Admiral Bowman, I've been briefed on the situation. Is it accurate to say we have a first contact scenario with both the Volusian research team and Galactic Council representatives? Yes, Mr. President. Kate confirmed. We're currently in diplomatic discussions. The President nodded. Then perhaps I should speak directly to the Council representative. Clary stepped forward, visibly surprised that Earth's leader would become personally involved so quickly. Representative Clary, I am President Paul Kelly of the United Earth Government. This unexpected encounter gives us an opportunity to redefine the relationship between humanity and the Galactic Council. Clary responded formally. The Council will need to discuss any changes to existing treaties. This situation does not give me the authority to. The President gently interrupted. I understand diplomatic protocols, Representative. I'm not asking for immediate treaty changes. I'm suggesting we use this incident to begin a more honest conversation. He continued, for too long, humans have been classified and contained based on fears about our physical capabilities. Today, those same capabilities led us to respond to a distress call from a species we'd never met. Doesn't that suggest there's more to humanity than your classification system accounts for? As the discussion continued, Zivel moved closer too. Lieutenant John Parker, who had removed his helmet but still wore his exosuit. Your armor, Zivel said quietly. It makes you even stronger than you naturally are? John nodded. Yes, it enhances our strength and protects us in hostile environments. Yet you came in these because you thought we were in danger and needed rescue, Zivel observed. That is a distinction my people failed to consider. We saw the weapons and armor as threatening, not protective. 1 month later, A formal ceremony was held aboard the Valiant Dawn. The ship's largest hangar bay had been transformed into a diplomatic hall, with representatives from Earth, the Galactic Council, and the Volusian scientific community in attendance. Admiral Kate Bowman stood at attention as the new agreement was displayed on large screens throughout the hall. After intensive negotiations, the Council had agreed to reclassify humans. While still acknowledging their physical capabilities as Deathworlders, the new classification included recognition of humanity's protective instincts and potential value as allies. President Kelly signed the document first, followed by the Council's High Representative. The agreement established a new role for humans in galactic affairs. Earth ships would be permitted to patrol designated sectors, responding to distress calls and providing protection for scientific and exploration missions in dangerous regions. Zivil approached Kate after the ceremony, carrying a small object in his upper limbs. Admiral, the Volusian Science Academy wished me to present you with this. It was the beacon that had started everything, now deactivated and mounted on a decorative base. We've studied it extensively, Zivil explained. It was an emergency transmitter from an early Earth vessel, lost during your first attempts at interstellar travel over a century ago. It drifted for decades before becoming trapped in the debris field where we found it. Kate accepted the gift with a smile. So an old piece of human technology brought us together. Indeed, Zivil agreed. Our mistake in activating it led to a new understanding between our peoples. As the celebration continued, Dr. Alan Wright watched from a corner of the room. His decision to forward the distress signal directly to Earth had nearly caused an interstellar incident. Instead, it had opened a new chapter in human galactic relations. Lieutenant John Parker approached him with a drink. Dr. Wright, I believe you're the reason we're all here. If you hadn't recognized that signal ... Alan shrugged modestly. I just did what anyone would do when they hear a call for help. That's exactly the point, John said, raising his glass in a toast. That's what makes us human. On the bridge of a Council science vessel several sectors away, a young Volusian officer monitored the sensors during her first deep space assignment. When an anomalous reading appeared, indicating a ship in trouble, she didn't hesitate. She opened a channel and sent a message to the nearest patrol. The patrol happened to be a joint Human Council mission. Within hours, 3 human ships arrived to assist the damaged vessel. The accidental SOS had done more than summon a Deathworlder armada. It had revealed humanity's true nature to the galaxy, dangerous when threatened, but fiercely protective of those in need. The label Deathworlder remained, but its meaning had forever changed.